Is your business ready for the EU AI Act? It sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer, well, it carries massive implications for the future of your organization. Right now, a literal tectonic shift is happening in the global regulatory landscape. If your company interacts with artificial intelligence in any capacity, the rules of the game have fundamentally changed and the clock is officially ticking. So why the urgency? Well, you really need to understand the sheer scale of the consequences here. Organizations that fail to comply with these new requirements face staggering penalties. We're talking up to 35 million euros or 7% of their annual global turnover. To put that into perspective, that is a significantly higher ceiling than even the dreaded GDPR. This isn't just a gentle tap on the wrist. It's a jaw-dropping enforcement mechanism designed to command the immediate attention of boardrooms all across the globe.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to take hundreds of pages of dense, honestly kind of dry regulatory text, and we're going to translate it into a clear, actionable business strategy. We aren't just looking at the law itself. We are going to dive into the ultimate operational solution. By the end of our time together, you'll understand exactly how to bridge that gap between regulatory panic and operational confidence.
Okay, here's our roadmap. First, we'll cover the scope of the new EU AI Act. Second, we'll explain the AI risk classification system. Third, we'll introduce the ISO 42001 solution. Fourth, we'll map that ISO standard directly to the Act. And finally, we'll lay out your step-by-step compliance roadmap. Okay, let's dive into this. With Section 1, the new EU AI Act, which is really setting the global regulatory benchmark. Right off the bat, there is this massive myth going around that this new regulation only targets the big tech giants. The companies building those massive foundation models. Actually, scratch that. It is completely false. The EU AI Act applies to any organization developing, deploying, or even simply utilizing AI within the European Union, totally regardless of your company's size. Whether you're a multinational developer or just a mid-size retailer using AI-driven customer service tools, you are in scope. Plus, the Act mandates AI literacy training for all personnel interacting with these systems. So you don't just need compliant tech, you need a highly educated workforce.
And please, don't fall into the trap of thinking this is going to be some distant, abstract law enforced from a central office in Brussels. It's not. Governance and enforcement are going to be fiercely local, driven directly by specific national authorities. For example, in Spain, the newly formed Spanish Agency for the Supervision of Artificial Intelligence, or ASIA, holds strict inspection and sanctioning powers. These national bodies are actively gearing up to audit everyday businesses as we speak. The inspectors are real, and they will literally be knocking on doors.
Moving on to Section 2, let's get into AI risk classification explained, looking at the 4 tiers.
Now, before we start panicking about imminent inspections, the beauty of this regulation is that it's surprisingly pragmatic. It's entirely tiered based on how you use the AI, not on the underlying technology itself. The Act categorizes AI systems into 4 distinct risk tiers. At the very top, we have unacceptable risk. These are practices like government social scoring or manipulative surveillance, and there's no gray area. They are flat out prohibited. At the total opposite end, we have minimal risk. Think of your standard email spam filters. These face virtually no new strict rules. Then, right in the middle, we have limited risk, which is mostly about transparency. Say someone is interacting with your customer service chatbot. They just need to be clearly told they're speaking to a machine. But here's where the real meat of this legislation lies: the high-risk category. If you are using AI to screen applicant resumes in HR or for healthcare diagnostics, you face incredibly strict obligations around safety and accountability. Specifically, Article 17 of the Act mandates that providers of high-risk AI must implement a rigorous quality management system. You're going to need formal policies, documented procedures, and post-market monitoring.
Which brings us to Section 3, the ISO 42001 solution, where we turn all this regulation into actual operations.
So, how exactly do we turn these daunting, complex legal requirements into smooth, daily business operations? Well, we do it by turning to international standards. Published just recently in 2023, ISO 42001 is the world's very first international standard specifically designed for an artificial intelligence management system, or AIMS. It's basically the perfect operational counterweight to the AI Act. And here is the real secret weapon of this standard. It is built on the Annexo SL structure. That means its fundamental architecture is exactly the same as the management systems your business probably already uses. It is designed to be fully plug-and-play.
What is highly strategic here is how this framework leverages your existing investments. If you already have an ISO 9001 quality management system in place, you are definitely not starting from scratch. Honestly, ISO 9001 gives you a massive head start.
You already understand document control, risk-based thinking, and management reviews, right? You already know how to audit your suppliers. But ISO 9001 alone isn't quite enough to satisfy the new AI Act. ISO 42001 takes that familiar foundation and adds the critical specialized layers required for AI. Things like governing your training data, managing algorithmic bias, and ensuring automated decision traceability. It neatly bridges that final gap to full compliance.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next point in Section 4, mapping ISO to the Act, where we see how the puzzle pieces fit.
This is the real aha moment, where we see abstract bureaucratic law translate directly into highly familiar business controls. The EU AI Act demands a risk-based classification system for your AI? Well, look at that. ISO 42001 Clause 6.1.2 gives you the exact step-by-step risk assessment process to satisfy that demand. The Act outlines intense requirements for high-risk AI. ISO Clauses 8.1 through 8.3 provide the operational planning and control frameworks to manage those precise risks. Article 52 of the Act demands transparency for users. ISO covers that seamlessly through impact assessment and communication protocols in Clauses 6.1.3 and 7.4. It's a perfect match.
Let's move to the next slide and see how this builds across other critical mandates. This is basically a checklist for conquering your regulatory fears. Regulators are absolutely terrified of biased, low-quality AI data, so the Act demands data quality and governance. ISO 42001 answers this with strict data management protocols. The Act insists on a human oversight mandate so machines don't just run unchecked. ISO provides formalized human oversight mechanisms. And perhaps most importantly, Article 11 of the Act requires exhaustive technical documentation to prove your conformity. ISO handles this entirely through documented information. The puzzle pieces fit together flawlessly. ISO 42001 is quite literally the operational blueprint for EU AI Act compliance.
All right, final stretch. Section 5, your compliance roadmap, broken down into 3 actionable steps.
Knowing all of this, what exactly should you do the minute this explainer ends? Drawing on the expert methodologies of firms like Amos Consultors, here are your 3 actionable steps. Step 1. Inventoria. You need to inventory your AI systems. And let me tell you, this is way harder than it sounds. Finding all your AI is a bit like finding dust bunnies. It is always hiding in corners you forgot to check, embedded silently in your HR software, your CRM, or your customer service chat tools. You can't govern what you don't know you have. Step 2. Classify your AI risk levels. Look at that inventory and apply the 4-tier framework we discussed. Is a system minimal risk or is it high risk? Step 3. Review your existing QMS and conduct an analysis de brechas, a gap analysis. Take your current ISO 9001 system, lay the ISO 42001 requirements right over it, and identify exactly what needs to be built to achieve compliance. Now, before we wrap up, I do need to give a brief but really critical reminder. While implementing the ISO 42001 standard gives you the most robust, structured operational defense available today, everything we've discussed is for informational purposes. True compliance with the EU AI Act carries incredibly heavy legal weight, so always ensure you consult with qualified legal professionals to validate your final standing.
I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. The EU AI Act isn't some futuristic sci-fi concept anymore. It is a present reality with profound financial and operational consequences. So I ask you, if a national authority auditor knocked on your office door tomorrow morning, could you pull up a documented, standardized system and definitively prove that your AI operations are responsible, controlled, and compliant? If your answer is no, well, the time to start building your ISO 42001 roadmap is today.